The biggest con in this story is not Hayley's fake name. It is Bill's ego convincing him he is untouchable. Vanessa continues to operate as though consequences are a charming rumor, and the patience for it is wearing thin. The expectation is no longer character development, but something far more basic. Get caught, get charged, and stop treating criminality like a lifestyle accessory. Meanwhile, Bill is out here playing chess with the serene confidence of a man who assumes everyone else is legally vetted, while Hayley is busy playing checkers with a fake name and a talent for saying the quiet part out loud, such as promising Joey Armstrong she will crawl for him, an oath that manages to be both humiliating and suspiciously revealing. The situation becomes even more absurd when the narrative drops the morsel that Hayley is actually Val, possibly Valerie, possibly Valley, if the urge to brand the deception as a personality trait proves irresistible. And apparently, Lynette casually greeting Val in front of Hayley was meant to land as subtlety rather than a neon sign. In a town as small and socially repetitive as Fairmont Crest, coffee spot, country club, hospital corridors, and a few uptown corners, the idea that no one has ever seen Randy and Hayley huddled together strains credibility past the breaking point. Yet the larger problem is not the town's eyesight. It is Bill's. The fact that Bill never background-checked Val Hayley before divorcing Danny and marrying her is not romantic naivete. It is professional negligence in a suit. Somewhere in all this, the Dupree residence casually reveals a bowling alley downstairs, a detail so extravagantly unnecessary it almost feels like the show is mocking anyone still living in ordinary housing. Then there is Anita, who has abruptly reminded everyone that even in a soap opera, illness is not a plot device that politely keeps its distance from the audience's real life. Mrs. Anita is not exactly winning awards for emotional concealment, but that is precisely why the biopsy storyline lands. It is messy, frightening, and familiar. The writing and performance manage to pull off the rare trick of making viewers forget, momentarily, that this is fictional, tears included. Anita is framed as resilient, distinctly Dupree, and still impeccably styled while facing something terrifying. The wardrobe remains flawless, even when the storyline is not. For some, the very idea of seeing vibrant, bold Anita Dupree sick is intolerable enough to fast forward, which is an understandable defense mechanism dressed up as a viewing habit. For others, the point is exactly the opposite. A medical storyline can do what public service announcements often fail to do: push people to get screened. The precedent exists. Soaps have historically driven real-world increases in mammogram awareness, and the reminder is blunt but necessary. Cancer does not care about wealth, status, or storyline convenience, and men should not treat breast health as someone else's issue. If this arc is handled with care, educational, accurate, and responsible, and it motivates even one person to get checked early, then the discomfort becomes meaningful rather than merely dramatic. That is the kind of life-altering plot twist that makes team rivalries look as trivial as they always were. Of course, the show still insists on sprinkling in avoidable nonsense. Months have passed since Hayley's faked miscarriage. Leslie's misdeeds have had plenty of time to ripen. Doug is gone, and accountability remains as absent as Bill's due diligence. The writers appear committed to the radical concept that time passing is the same thing as resolution. It is not. Payback is not a luxury, it is structural integrity. And while the serious storylines demand care, the interpersonal ones demand basic self-respect, specifically Kat's. Watching Kat's confidence collapse over Tomas is less romantic turmoil and more needless character sabotage. Tomas has played both sisters, slept with both, and still receives a remarkable level of communal indulgence, as though duplicity is a minor quirk rather than a sustained pattern of harm. The disappointment is not that a scoundrel exists in the story. It is that the narrative keeps insisting he deserves the caliber of woman he has repeatedly disrespected. Even the lighter commentary manages to expose sharper truths. Uncle Vernon is declared not cheating, merely a hopeless romantic, an oddly specific defense that suggests experience with the courtroom of public opinion. Vernon's dressed-down look earns praise, as it should. It is one of the few things in this world that does not feel like an elaborate disguise. Anita's outfits remain consistently exceptional, which is comforting in the way stable details often are. Meanwhile, Nicole's demure ensemble apparently succeeds where her priorities do not. Obsessing over Annie Eva while neglecting her own daughter is not maternal concern, it is misdirected fixation with better lighting. Shanice is told to mind her business, yet people keep conducting sensitive conversations at the nurses' station as though it is a private confessional booth. If confidentiality is the goal, perhaps stop narrating life choices in front of the staff tasked with hearing everything. And for the fashion police, the verdict is clear. Nicole looks polished, Kat's shoes are a firm rejection, and Naomi's outfit prompts genuine confusion, an impressive feat in a genre known for wardrobe excess. Finally, the universe pauses to acknowledge a loss beyond the show's walls. Anthony Geary, widely recognized for his iconic role as Luke Spencer on General Hospital, is mourned with the kind of respect legacy earns. Then it is back to the central absurdity. Hayley as Val, a paralegal with a fabricated identity, making devotionally degrading promises, while Bill remains inexplicably unaware and dangerously confident. The conclusion writes itself, "Wake up, Bill. The town has already moved on from wondering." It is waiting for the inevitable reckoning to arrive on schedule, preferably with handcuffs and a well-earned sense of narrative justice. If you want, I can also produce a tighter version, assassin, or about half the length, or a more scathing version, while keeping the medical storyline handled with appropriate restraint. Never trust a show that treats medical results like a season finale twist. An episode can barely open its mouth before it decides to stage an emotional hostage situation in public. Eva, visibly cornered, pleads for basic dignity while her mother performs guilt like it deserves an Emmy. Press the pressure points, weaponize affection, and act shocked when the child starts choking back tears. Eva even tries to recruit Ted to remove Nicole from the blast radius, because apparently the only adult in the room is the young woman willing to lose a father figure if it prevents collateral damage. That is not melodrama. That is emotional triage. And it makes Eva the rare character who understands that love is not proven by how loudly someone can humiliate you in front of an audience. Meanwhile, the broader world continues its usual circus. A political campaign gets floated, Bill Hamilton for Congress, because nothing says fresh leadership like a man whose personal life already looks like it was approved by a scandal consultant. The enthusiasm for new leadership is understandable. The decision to staple that hope to Bill Hamilton is less so. Then the show swerves into a storyline that actually deserves its airtime. Anita Dupree confronting the slow-motion dread of a breast exam that escalates into further investigation, and eventually a biopsy. There is no glamour in a medical waiting room, and the episode wisely refuses to pretend otherwise. Anxiety builds as the nurse explains each step with practiced calm, the kind of calm that only exists because someone has had to reassure terrified people 1,000 times before. Anita's face does what the script does not need to overstate. It captures the brutal, quiet arithmetic of uncertainty. The only thing more exhausting than the procedure is the show's insistence on making the audience sit in suspense for results, as if fear is a cliffhanger format. The obvious question hangs there, unanswered. Why not allow a clean, negative result and move forward? Because the writers cannot resist turning healthcare into a strenuous game, where reassurance is always delayed for maximum emotional yield. Still, credit where it is due. The storyline lands because it feels specific. Anita's reminiscing, the nerve-wracking wait, the procedural detail, the letdown when same-day results are not available. It is a pointed reminder that preventive care is not seasonal content, and that breast cancer awareness does not politely confine itself to October. The episode also acknowledges the broader ecosystem around health, affordability, access to care, and the mental toll of not knowing. For viewers scheduling mammograms or recognizing the biopsy procedure beat for beat, it is not just a plot. It is a mirror. Naturally, the show cannot simply handle one serious theme without tossing in a secondary chaos buffet. Leslie and Leslie Jr. hover with the unmistakable energy of people eager to step into Nicole and Kat's lives, as if identity theft is a lifestyle choice. Vernon arrives with a surprise for Anita, because even during a medical crisis, the narrative still needs its scheduled uplift. And then there is Hayley, breezing in with that paralegal line as if professional credibility is a magic spell. It lands less like competence and more like a costume. If the name legal is doing the heavy lifting, the argument is already in trouble. The paranoia meter rises elsewhere too. Lynette is practically telegraphing blackmail, her intentions written across her face with all the subtlety of a neon sign. Bill's karma is in moment, reaping what was sown, yet the story keeps hinting that Hayley is overdue for her own reckoning. Karma bouncing off karma, indeed. And if the plotline involves Hayley poisoning Bill, the impatience is understandable. Either develop it with purpose or stop dangling it like a cheap teaser. Even geography gets dragged into the confusion. Fairmount Crest is positioned in Prince George's County, Maryland. Yet there is talk of running for office in Washington, D.C., as if neighboring jurisdictions share a government because they share a border. They do not. The show is capable of explaining a biopsy in detail. It can manage the difference between Maryland and the district without injuring itself. And through all of it, medical fear, political ambition, predatory side characters, jurisdictional sloppiness, one thing remains oddly grounding. Anita Dupree, boots and all. The wardrobe gets noticed because, in a storyline about vulnerability, she still shows up looking like herself. The episode's accidental triumph is that it makes care, real, unglamorous, preventive care, feel urgent. Not inspirational in a manufactured way, but necessary in the way life insists on being when the stakes are not fictional, even if the characters are. Do not fall for the mystery packaging. If a character needs 3 names, the story is not deep, it is padded. Of course, the episode opens by asking viewers to pick a side, as if any of the available options deserve loyalty. Hayley is unpleasant, yes, but the men orbiting her are hardly relief. Bill's arrogance is practically a personality trait, and Tomas wears that polished good man routine like it came with a return policy. Then there is Kat, confidently operating under the belief that the universe exists to process her emotions first, and everyone else's second, if at all. The writing, however, was especially pleased with itself today. Bill's conversation with Hayley about working with Tomas on Lynette's case was delivered with that smug, double-edged precision soaps love. Hayley objects, and Bill purrs, "Oh, you do not want to spy on your friend?" A line designed to sound like he knows everything. Naturally, the joke is that he is not referencing her connection to Lynette at all. He is talking about Tomas's friend. The show hands out misunderstanding like party favors and expects gratitude. And while the episode is busy setting traps, it also raises a basic question. It refuses to answer cleanly. What is Hayley's real name? The identity situation is getting absurd. Val, Hayley, Roberta? Pick one. When a character requires multiple labels just to appear in a scene, it stops feeling like intrigue and starts feeling like the writers are stalling for time. The confusion is no longer a mystery. It is a maintenance problem. Even Lynette slipping and calling her Val only confirms what the show has been telegraphing. Lynette has secrets, and this storyline is being built on misdirection rather than clarity. Kat continues to deliver the same performance in different lighting. Selfishness presented as sensitivity. There is no support for her partner's career, no willingness to share space with anyone else's priorities, and certainly no humility. If Tomas is an opportunist using her, it is almost impressive how her instincts remain completely offline. The so-called spider sense is apparently on permanent vacation. Nicole is another exercise in selective compassion. There is endless tenderness for someone else's child, and conspicuously little for her own. It is not complicated. Empathy is not a decorative trait to be displayed when it makes someone look principled. The contrast is glaring, and the character comes off less caring and more performative. Then there is Vanessa. An entire cautionary tale squeezed into one character. The fixation on Joey has crossed from messy into outright disturbing. She is not simply prioritizing a man. She is publicly announcing that she would have chosen him over Doug, as if emotional cruelty is a sign of romantic bravery. That kind of statement is not dramatic, it is reckless. It is also perfectly consistent with the broader pattern. She spends less time with her children and more time feeding her own obsession. The result is not passion. The result is desperation dressed up as devotion. And no, this is not compelling complexity. It is a mother repeatedly choosing selfishness and expecting applause for honesty. Meanwhile, the episode takes a detour into moral grandstanding, with Chelsea calling Andre a child groom, a comment that lands as both inappropriate and careless. Serious terms do not become more meaningful when thrown like insults. They become less credible. It was the kind of line that sounds dramatic in a script meeting and irresponsible in an actual scene. The show also keeps dabbling in real-world medical storylines, particularly around breast exams and biopsy anxiety. On paper, that is the kind of socially relevant arc soaps should handle. In practice, it becomes another suspense machine. Will Anita tell Vernon if the results are benign? Will he notice the biopsy scar? The writers clearly want credit for awareness, and to be fair, the storyline could push viewers to take screening seriously. Still, there is an uncomfortable neatness to using medical fear as both education and cliffhanger fuel. And speaking of Vernon, the articulate thread remains maddeningly vague. The narrative keeps implying secret meetings and hidden intentions, while the on-screen evidence feels inconsistent. Either the show missed a scene, or it is encouraging speculation to do the storytelling for it. If the intent is mystery, the execution is noise. As for the smaller details, Kat's refusal to change outfits is becoming its own subplot. The hat situation is also doing far too much, as if accessories can substitute for characterization. And Kiki's black nose ring may be intended as edgy styling, but it reads more like a deliberate distraction. An aesthetic choice that invites commentary because the writing is not giving enough substance to talk about. Finally, the episode sprinkles in relationship questions. It does not bother to resolve. Did Naomi and Jacob start marriage counseling, or was that just another line tossed into the air to simulate depth? The show loves the appearance of forward motion. Actual movement is optional. In the end, the episode succeeds at one thing: manufacturing conversation. Between identity games, surveillance insinuations, selective morality, and Vanessa's escalating self-centeredness, the hour is less a coherent narrative and more a parade of characters insisting their worst impulses deserve the spotlight. The writers were slick today, yes, but slick is not the same as solid. The intrigue is building, Lynette's secrets are clearly about to matter, and Bill will inevitably discover more than he pretends not to know. Until then, the series continues its favorite tradition, presenting chaos as complexity and calling it progress. If you want, I can make this even sharper by tightening the identity section into a single punchier paragraph, or by amplifying the character-by-character breakdown while keeping the no-section break rule. If Eva were truly irrelevant, no one would be working this hard to erase her. Tomas's fixation on the future is understandable. Ambition has a way of sounding noble when it doubles as an excuse to ignore inconvenient realities. Still, the man could attempt the radical concept of listening. Kat's perspective on Bill is not exactly random speculation. She happens to know her uncle. And while it is a relief Tomas is not trying to railroad Kat into moving in with him, the bar should not be so low it requires excavation. Then there is Vanessa, an unfolding cautionary tale in real time. Whatever composure existed has apparently been mislaid, replaced by the spectacle of chasing Joey with the persistence of someone auditioning for humiliation. It is difficult to watch, not because it is tragic, but because it is voluntary. The self-respect has not merely slipped, it has packed its belongings and moved out permanently. Meanwhile, the gatekeeping theatrics around Anita are in full swing, complete with fingers crossed and whispered anticipation. And for once, the emotional manipulation actually works. Anita's scenes land because they are written to pull at the heart and performed with enough weight to make it count. Visually, the production continues to do what certain characters cannot: make smart choices. The wardrobe stands out, particularly Kat's striped sweater and black cap, clean, confident, and unmistakably reminiscent of swinging 60s London. Styling like that communicates intention. Several people in this story could use a memo on that concept. Naomi, however, remains a separate concern. Something is consistently misfiring. Less eccentric, and more, someone should check the wiring. The decision-making is so erratic, it reads like a storyline designed to test the limits of audience patience. And speaking of logic gaps, the Randy and Hayley situation is a minor miracle of narrative convenience. They meet wherever they please, yet somehow never cross paths with anyone from the sprawling Dupree, Hamilton, Richardson universe. In a world where families apparently populate every hallway and restaurant, these two move like ghosts. Either the town is enormous, or everyone else has agreed to wear blindfolds. The campaign to keep Tomas away from Eva continues with all the subtlety of a public service announcement, yet the outcome feels pre-written. For all the effort poured into blocking her, Eva is still positioned to win, which makes Kat's crusade even more revealing. The bitterness, insecurity, and simmering hatred do not read as strategic. They read as desperate. If Eva were truly beneath Kat, there would be no need for constant threats, warnings, and family-wide mobilization to keep Tomas away. People do not mount this level of defense against something they consider irrelevant. Kat's defenders argue she has been forced into this version of herself by what Eva and Eva's mother did to her family, damage that understandably reshaped her. There is also the claim that Kat's relentless insistence that Eva has not changed is not paranoia, but pattern recognition. And to Kat's credit, there was visible accountability, a willingness to admit fault even when it benefits someone she dislikes. She is exhausted by the endless family arguments about Eva and the decision to choose peace, especially to protect time with her family, including her brother, lands as the first emotionally intelligent move in a while. Of course, the opposing interpretation is simpler and far less flattering. Kat showed her true colors as bratty, selfish, and ungrateful, turning family events into battlegrounds while demanding loyalty as tribute. After all, most people attend family functions they would rather avoid. Making every gathering a referendum on personal grievances is not resilience, it is entitlement with better lighting. Elsewhere, Bill delivers a professional embarrassment, failing to detect that Hayley was not even her real name. For a lawyer, this is not a charming oversight. It is negligence presented as plot. Then comes Leslie, whose obsession with reuniting Eva and Tomas raises the obvious question: why does this matter so much? The intensity is disproportionate, suggesting motives that are either poorly concealed or poorly written. Adding to the suspicion, Hayley's panic upon seeing her husband's new client signals that secrets are not just present, they are active and close to detonating. Finally, amid all this romantic sabotage and character corrosion, the show drops a rare moment of genuine responsibility, a clear message about breast cancer and the importance of testing. No melodrama needed, no plot twist required. Just a reminder that some things are, in fact, not entertainment. If you want, I can tighten the same rewrite into a slightly shorter, magazine column version while keeping every point intact. Sometimes the world feels so dark, it can be tough to find the light. That's often where the holidays come in as, when the year seems harshest, we gather together with loved ones to remember the love and warmth in us all. In fact, finding the light in the dark is exactly what Hanukkah is, as Beyond the Gates' Jen Jacob reminded us on Instagram after the horrifying tragedy in Australia. The actress shared a picture of her menorah, along with a horrifying tale of how her grandmother survived the Holocaust. She was taken to Auschwitz, then Stutthof, Jacob wrote. She spent 2 years surviving on potato peels and a will to live. They were then forced to dig their own graves, were lined up, and Jacob's grandmother fell in, somehow avoiding being shot and laying there for days until she could escape. You can read the full tale in her post below. I hid being Jewish for a long time. Jacob went on to admit. I was embarrassed of my sloppy roast beef and coleslaw sandwich on rye. I wanted to trade my dreidel for a Christmas tree. I wanted my grandma to speak to my friends without an accent. And when I was made fun of for the size of my nose for the 100th time, I started to believe I'd never be enough. But she is enough. And when someone asks her, "What are you?" her answer is, "I'm Jewish." It's not because of her religion, but because my culture, my family, my packed lunch at school, the curves of my body, my grandma and her accent, the pain and the loss, the opinions and love I've been taught to gush out of me without apology. It's all Jewish, baby. And that's when the actress explained why Jewish people light the menorah on Hanukkah. So that it can hold the weight of our history so that we don't have to carry it with us through the everyday. I don't know how the menorah does it. It is so very heavy. She ended the post simply by sharing that, "My heart is with Australia tonight." In Bill's office, Bill's wife makes a very big point of telling his new client, "Call me Hayley." Me thinks Hayley feared Lynette might reveal that our favorite minx has another name. Sure enough, Hayley later meets with Randy and tells him her old partner in crime is back in the picture. Randy says that he's no fan of coincidences and wants to know exactly why Lynette is popping up now. Having gotten Lynette's number from Bill's file, Hayley meets with her at Uptown. And as the two women give one another suspicious looks, Lynette calls Hayley Val and says it's been too long since they've seen one another. Vernon shows up at Danny's looking for help where his Christmas present to Anita is. But it's Andre's help he needs, not Danny's. Vernon asks Andre to help him turn a photo from his and Anita's past into the perfect gift. Andre says he has the equipment to do so back at his apartment. Once he exits, Vernon wants to know why Danny's hubby still has his old condo. She assures him that everything is good, adding that she will never succumb to Bill's charms again. Meanwhile, Anita's breakfast meeting with Nicole is interrupted by her doctor calling, wanting to do an immediate scan on a lesion found on the matriarch's breast. Anne says that 80% of biopsies are benign, and Anita makes it clear she doesn't want her family to know what's going on. Later, after a talk with the doctor, Anita puts on a brave face and undergoes the procedure. Martin and Smitty discuss a new bill that the Politico is being asked to support involving gambling. He later talks to Nicole about the proposal, and she worries that crossing Joey could be dangerous. It's also being discussed by Joey, who fears it might have a negative impact on his money laundering business. Wanting to be a bigger player, Joey meets with Bill, suggesting he run for office. Together, he suggests they can target Martin. Although Bill isn't completely sold, he does agree to give the idea more thought, even shaking on it. When Bill tells his wife about Joey's proposal, she hastily vetoes it, fearing it would derail her plan to get him alone and finish him off.